Penn State met Washington with some whiteout conditions in what might have been the Huskies' true welcome to the Big Ten. And Penn State cruised to a 35-6 win to improve to 8-1 on the season. There was a lot to like with how the offense rebounded from the loss to Ohio State. We discussed that, the current college football playoff picture, and the future of the whiteout after it was a streaming-only game on Peacock. Nittany Nation Overtime is next.
Hey, what I'm doing, hey, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I drew it. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, spin on live, you don't believe it, just watch.
Welcome into another edition of Nittany Nation Overtime. I'm your host, Ryan Risky. I'm joined by the Nit Wits, Mark Brennan, Rudel, and former Nittany Lion kicker Massimo Manca. And guys, Penn State seemed to rebound pretty well after the loss to Ohio State, winning 35-6.
Go ahead, why don't you start? I already tried to start.
Oh, boy. No, hey, look, we were wondering how Penn State was going to bounce back in this new era of college football playoff, 12 teams. You know, the key is if you lose one game, don't let one team beat you twice. Don't let it carry over. I thought they did just an unbelievable job. Great job by the coaching staff. Great job by the players flushing that loss. Was that a perfect game? No, but it didn't have to be. Penn State really needed to come out and win that game convincingly, reestablish itself as a college football playoff contender. You look at what happened around the college football landscape, and I think Penn State did exactly what it needed to do.
Yeah, good starts, both sides of the ball. Scored the first 4 times they had the ball. Very decisive up front. I mean, on third down, they were 7 of 7 in the first half. Averaged like 6.5 yards a carry for the entire game. So I thought they were the stronger team. This is going to be a difficult transition. We're seeing that with Washington and the travel and the physicality of the Big Ten. But I thought Penn State kind of reestablished itself among the elite of the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to see them come back after the disappointing game last week. And Washington has been getting better. You know, they started out slow, but they came to play, and you could see that on the first drive when they threatened. But got to hand them to it. Penn State was ready to play. It was really nice to see.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ryan, but you know, Washington, Will Rogers, I mean, that guy has played in some big-time atmospheres, and Penn State really rattled him. I mean, he was in the SEC for, you know, he's going to end up as one of the top 10 passers of all time, probably in college football, and to play as well as they did against him. And then Neil, you hit it on it. The offense. After what happened against Ohio State, where Andy Kotelnicki just seemed to not be at his best in the clutch, he got rid of that and came back, and I thought he called a great game. I thought Aller played really well. They got the ball to Tyler Warren when the world wanted them to get the ball to Tyler Warren, Bo Prabula, all these things. And I think that speaks well of Kotelnicki that, listen, we've been around coaches who have heard criticism from fans and the media and have been so stubborn that they would not do what the world thought they should do. And maybe that isn't always a good thing, that, you know, listening to fans. But in this instance, they go to Tyler Warren, they get Prabula in there, and I just thought it made complete sense.
Yeah, that might be another segment or another show. I'm still not totally convinced that all the blame for that would fall at his feet, Kotelnicki.
Yeah, the entire staff.
Right.
I mean, starting with the head guy.
Yeah. You know, because he's the common denominator in a lot of those situations. Yeah. And that was the maddening part for me of that game. Because here, you know, you're 1 week later of all these plays that you didn't run against Ohio State. So I know everybody, including me, has to move past that. Yeah. And if they had let Ohio State beat them twice emotionally, that'd be the lead here today.
See, Neil was half angry in the press box that they were running these plays, and I'm like, I think you learn from your mistakes. Yeah. I mean, they learn from their mistakes. I mean, and if you're saying you don't want the same team to beat you twice, learn.
And it was nice that they're trying to get the ball in the hands of their best playmakers. I mean, Tyler Warren scored twice from the goal line, and it really does make you wonder, you know, where was all of this last week?
Yeah, but it's interesting, you know, sitting and watching the game from the stands, it's a whole other perspective, man. You hear fans and you just kind of shake your head. But think about it, Warren was not featured until the second quarter. He didn't touch the ball the whole first quarter, and the fans are like, why isn't 44 getting the ball? And they unleashed him in the second quarter, and you know what he did the rest of the game. So.
Well, it was pretty funny because when Pribula goes out there in the goal-to-go situation, the fans immediately recognized it. And then in the second quarter, Massimo, when Warren is out there in that short-yarded situation, a buzz comes over the stadium. Yeah. So, Neil, we may look at it differently, and we have fun arguing about it in the press box, but I just think listen, they weren't so stubborn to realize this is what you have to do.
Right, but big picture, hey, let's start grading them with their peers.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't think it should have taken a week because Pribula was another guy that people thought, okay, at least roll him out there in this goal line offense that just, you know, you were trying to mush a week earlier. So, right, they did learn, and hopefully they'll have another real big situation where they need a touchdown to win a championship, whether it's to advance in the playoffs or what. There's going to be more of those, so hopefully we'll see that.
And then kind of, Massimo, back to your point, when Warren came in, you could feel the buzz in the crowd. He had to start trying to quiet them down so that he could run the offense.
Well, the other thing, after the game, James Franklin, you know, beating the table, pounding the table for Tyler Warren to win all these awards. You know what? If you would have given the ball against Ohio State, he would have had a better chance of winning all these awards. I think he deserves every award that he gets. I mean, he is that good. Massimo, you were around great tight ends. I mean, just about every Penn State player, but where does this kid rank? I mean, as you look at you play with Seiverling and those guys. I mean,
right, yeah. Dean DeMidio was a great tight end as well. But then obviously in the 90s we had some great tight ends, and just recently as well. But this guy is out of his world. It's just, I've never seen an athletic tight end like that. He can run. Obviously, well, he can't really pass too well, it looks like, but he'll probably perfect that. But it's just fun to watch, man. He's hard to bring down, and it's really a pleasure to see him play.
He's also a great blocker on the Pribula run and a couple others. And he's a great leader. You can tell by his comments. I mean, hey, he had to have the whole world coming up to him last week saying, why the heck did you not get the ball? And he just really handled that, a big buy-in from him. I'm real impressed with his leadership and actually the whole team. It speaks well to them.
Well, definitely a lot to like offensively, and it's nice that Penn State rebounded the way that they did. For now, we've got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to discuss the red zone offense more in depth. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back into Nittany Nation Overtime. Ryan Risky, Mark Brennan, Neil Rudel, and former Nittany Lion kicker Massimo Manca. And guys, as we were discussing, it was like night and day with the red zone offense this week compared to Ohio State. And as we've been saying before, you're just wondering what was going on last week. Where were these plays? Where was the creative formations? Why were you just running it up the middle with Katron Allen at the 1 yard line?
Yeah, and we kind of hit on in the first segment. I mean, coach the same game, in the biggest moments, and I think people would be fine with that. That's your best player. You're lobbying for him to win the Mackey Award. That was disappointing, but they learned. And the neat thing is, there's a college football playoff now, and everybody kind of has a new lease on. And Penn State is perfectly positioned. They may not even have to deal with the Big Ten championship game, and that'll heighten the rest.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is Ohio State was Andy Kotelnicki's first attempt at that level of game. I mean, he's been in big games, obviously, at Buffalo and Kansas, but on that stage with the entire world watching, I'm not saying you give him a pass, but I think you give him the benefit of the doubt that hopefully he learns, and it sure looked like he did. But Neil, I hate to agree with you, but I will. I want to see him do it. I want to see them do it.
We'll give them some help then.
Right.
But when they time out.
Right. When they get into the college football playoff, which it looks like is going to happen at this point, I'm just so anxious to see what they do there, to see if they really learn, because it's one thing to do it against Washington. It'll be another thing to do it against Notre Dame or whoever else they may run into in the CFP.
One thing I also wanted to touch on was the defense. So Washington has a 13-play drive to open up the game. The field goal doinks off the goalpost, except the rest of that first half, Washington ran just 12 plays after that.
Yeah, what are you seeing from the defense? I mean, they go together with special teams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they hung in there. There were a couple of penalties that extended their drive in the first quarter.
Right.
But it's, coming out, that energy from the whiteout, it was loud. And you have to hand it to Washington, though. They responded well. And the defense is great. We have a great defense. They're just going to keep getting better. Going back to the 3 plays that you're talking about last week, I think that also the coaches believed that our line and that Nittany Lion could make it 2 yards. And I said, just keep trying it, just keep trying it. Obviously, it didn't work out. This was Ohio State. Great learning experience. We have a lot to look forward to now that we know we're going to keep playing. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but we're certainly hoping for a game on the December 20th or 21st here at home, which would be awesome.
And they also ran the ball really well in this game. Nittany Lion had 98 yards. Nick Singleton averaged 6.4 yards per carry before he ended up leaving the game with what was an undisclosed reason.
Yeah, he didn't come back after the long kickoff return that everybody's been anxious to see
Special teams.
him break. It was, James was not going to address what his status was immediately afterwards, might not have known either. I think the long season, they're being very cautious. Sutton probably didn't play yesterday, right? Did he play?
Yeah, no, he played on 3rd downs and 4th downs.
Okay.
I mean, but Franklin talked about it earlier in the week is, the ability to play through being banged up. They have a lot of guys who are dealing with bumps and nicks. I mean, Singleton clearly, from the beginning of the season, wasn't quite there until we saw him on that kick return. Then he gets bumped up again. But, Aller was bumped up. So many players have been bumped up. In this new era where you could be playing well, multiple games in December and January, it's key to be able to play through injuries. They have a lot of guys doing it. It's going to be key to see if Nick Singleton could go against Purdue. I mean, they're not going to need him against Purdue, but, just being healthy for the end of the season.
Right, but they put that Corey Smith in, and he busted in almost an 80-yard run. So the depth and the recruitment is really shining. I mean, they basically have lost their 2 best defensive players in Sutton and Winston, and they're making accommodations.
Well, I think an argument could be made for Abdul Carter as being one of their best defensive players, the way he played in that game.
Yeah.
But I would say, I know we're kind of bolting around here, but the job Abdul Carter did without Dennis Sutton in there, I mean, it's 4 tackles for losses, 2 sacks, without like an all Big Ten caliber player on the other side of you. I think that was pretty amazing. And he could end up being, if I don't have this wrong, I think that Carter could end up being the first Penn State player to win first-team all Big Ten honors at 2 different positions, linebacker and defensive end. That'd be wild.
I think the way that we've
Wait,
seen
didn't you punt?
They weren't in the Big Ten either.
I think that it's been nice seeing the way that he's grown from that transition from linebacker to defensive end. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen multiple games this year. He's just proven to be that game wrecker, that game changer in games.
Yeah, and he was more disciplined. He wasn't called for offside, which had been a problem leading up to this game. So I think he's really improving.
And Neil and I had a chance to talk to him after the game. He's really improved as a leader, too. I mean, he's kind of a mild-mannered dude talking to the media and stuff, but with some of the injuries they've had, KJ Winston, I mean, he's stepped up and besides changing positions, has become more of a vocal leader, and I think that's important when your best players are your leaders.
They lost Beeman. I mean, there's been some leadership voids,
So a lot to like on the field. However, off the field, the game wasn't even on television. So anyways, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to discuss the decision to put the game on Peacock and what the future of the whiteout could hold given the new television rights agreement. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back into Nittany Nation Overtime. Ryan Risky, Mark Brennan, Neil Rudel, and former Nittany Lion kicker Massimo Manca. And guys, the whiteout is supposed to be one of the marquee events in all of college football. Not just Penn State in the Big Ten, all of college football. And it was streaming only this week. And I get the logistics behind the new television rights agreement with the Big Ten. NBC gets games, and they also get games on their streaming network, which is Peacock. And they couldn't put it on their own channel this week because they had their contractual agreement with Notre Dame, and that was one of the 2 games they had to put at 7:30 for them. Except this can't happen for a big game like this, in my opinion.
You're taking the gloves off, Ryan. I like it. The TV guy. You're right. I mean, I think all the fans were frustrated, trying to find it. The fact that it was at 8 o'clock, I know they wanted it late to illuminate the whiteout, which is, one of the greatest events, not only in college football we're learning, but all sports, James has said. But, it's just, I think the Big Ten, I'm sure there's going to be a laundry list of complaints that the Big Ten has to field from all these schools. Look at the travel that the Washington had 4 buses going to Pittsburgh last night at 1 in the morning and taking a charter out of Pittsburgh, and they have a Friday night game this week. So I think they're all dealing with this kind of stuff.
And I hope that it's also one of those things that maybe after this year, and we know Penn State, James, and Pat were working with the Big Ten and the TV networks to make sure this game wasn't at noon and try to get it at night. They got their wish, not ideal on Peacock, except you maybe hope that going forward they could even try to get a better game than Washington.
Here's what I would say. Stop diluting the whiteout. We don't need a stripe out. We don't need a helmet out. We need energy, white, whatever.
Whiteout energy.
Yeah, whiteout energy. Whatever it is. You don't need all of that. Number 2, pick a game and make it to whiteout. I don't care if it's at night, if it's at day. They should have made Ohio State to whiteout, in my view. It's going to be on national TV. Just go ahead and do that. Last thing I'm going to say about this, I really wondered what the fan turnout was going to be like with this delusion of the whiteout, with the loss, with it being on Peacock. The fans were fantastic.
Yeah.
They showed up, and after a disappointing game, were a factor in that game early. I thought they did a tremendous job, so I was absolutely wrong thinking that might hurt the fan turnout. I was absolutely wrong. They did a great job.
Right. And they made it, again, the greatest show in college sports, and it's a whole spectacle. You've got the night sky, the fireworks, everyone wearing white. It's just a one-of-a-kind event for the sport.
But if you want it on national TV, you got to pick a big game like Ohio State and go with that. That's my
now you're
thing.
seeing some of these games being available in IMAX theaters.
Right.
So there's a lot of moving parts. Anyway,
Where's the IMAX in Altoona? Where is it?
Kelly Goodman had it in Bedford, and there was another one in York.
And then another thing, too, is you don't know what variation of the whiteout, going back to your point, Mark, that there could be in mid-December if they're hosting a playoff game, which right now they would be in line to host Notre Dame, which would be a prime game.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And going
Amazon Prime or
And going back to the whiteout, it is such a cool atmosphere. And I was watching the visitor section, and I'm thinking, I'm hoping that the University of Washington fans are also enjoying this because it's obviously unique to them. They've never been out this way for a game, so hopefully they had a good experience.
Well, they turned out pretty strong, I thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're great fans. I'm not sure how much they enjoyed the game, though. I mean, that
until
could
the game
have been
started.
a little tough, yeah.
Hey, Massimo, how about the young kicker that Penn State has? What's your assessment of him?
He's very, very steady. I feel bad for Sander, the kid that started the season, because he's a great kicker himself. He just had a couple of games where he was having some trouble, and to Barker's credit, he came in and he did a great job. I know he missed one yesterday, and that was his first miss of the year, but you can see that he's got a good head on his shoulders, very, very well. The way that he approaches the game, you can tell that he's always ready for that next kick, and he's looking forward to that next kick. That's very important.
How difficult of a position was he put in? Because he had no game experience at the collegiate level, and James had even said when trying to figure out if they were going to make a change, who it would be, and they had no game experience to go on with Barker.
Absolutely, and you have another kid on the roster that's a transfer from Tulsa who had a great year and obviously experienced in kicking at the major college level. And then this kid comes in, a walk-on. I have a lot of respect for him, the way that he was able to come in and be very steady. I don't know if Joe Paterno would have liked the way he reacted after the USC game-winning field goal, but man, that was awesome. That was awesome to see.
It's a different era, Massimo,
Yeah, it sure
as
is.
you know.
Joe would call that rapture.
Yeah.
When you hit a game-winning kick like that, though, I think you can get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
I agree.
There were a couple
That was
little
awesome.
leaks that sprung in the special teams. Singleton with a great return that had to be brought back for a holding penalty. Was there a fair catch on a kickoff that they tried to return as well? There were just
Oh, it's a defensive end, though, catching
Okay.
that, so I'm not sure he was quite sure what the hell he was doing. But no, overall, like one or two things have kind of surfaced in every game, and that's the one thing that I'd be a little nervous about with their special teams.
Did you guys notice, I don't know when the last time this happened, we didn't have a punt.
Yeah,
all
it's
game
crazy.
long. Nobody punted.
Yeah.
And Washington only punted twice. I mean, 2 punts in a game.
Yeah, definitely wild. Anyways, we got to take one more break. When we come back, we crown our Nitwit of the Week. Don't go anywhere.
Don't miss a minute of Nittany Nation Overtime, now also on Apple and Spotify. You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Nitwit of the Week time, and it looks like I was right again, and we've got a 2-score lead on both you and Mark now.
Jeez. And you were crowing about it in the media room afterwards. You didn't realize I was there. He was walking around the media room like a peacock, like a Nitwit of the Week.
Well,
telling
peacock, that was
everybody.
appropriate.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Hey, do you have a magic number now?
I mean, I think again, well, when I made the pick and I picked a blowout, you guys seemed a little surprised, and I was second guessing myself, like, oh, should I go back? And I just stuck with it. So, anyways, I'm going to go with another blowout again this week. I mean, Purdue's not very good. Penn State is. I mean, I'm going to say 42-0. I think they get a shutout.
Okay, I'm going to say 41-8. Maybe Purdue will punch something in. First of 2 road trips for Penn State, so a lot of focus. You don't get a great atmosphere up there. 41-8.
Ross-Ade Stadium, you don't get a great atmosphere.
Grass will be high.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could see this being a game where Penn State kind of takes its foot off the accelerator late. You're worried about people being banged up, so I'm going to go a little bit tighter. I'll say Penn State 38-7.
Okay.
All right, Massimo, the pressure's on you.
I know, man.
It's one win this year. You got to get back into it.
I think Ohio State put up 45 on them yesterday. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to call it 45-14. Not 45-10. 45-10.
All right, well, I think it's pretty consensus here that Penn State's going to win in a blowout. Anyways, that's all the time we have this week. We'll be back next week to recap the game against Purdue. Thank you all for watching.